Let's talk about all of this right now with the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, who joins us live from Middlesbrough. Good morning to you.
Hi, Julia. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Very much appreciate that. It's amazing some of the front pages, the ones that haven't gone with Meghan and Harry and bullying claims. A lot of these front pages of the newspapers, they seem to be very, very surprised that when you spend £407 billion on a pandemic and a lockdown, that eventually it has to be paid for. Do you think an awful lot of people in this country haven't quite got to grips with the sorts of sums of money that we're going to have to pay back somehow through not just growth, but also taxes?
What
Chancellor,
country, the challenges we face. And the first part of it is protecting people through coronavirus. I said last year we would do whatever it takes to support the economy through this period, support families and businesses. And that's what we're going to continue doing. And it's important people heard that and have reassurance from that. But you're right. It's also important to me to be honest with people about the challenges coronavirus has caused our public finances. We can't have borrowing and debt continuing to go up forever and a day. And I wanted to set out a clear plan to begin fixing that problem. And crucially, the steps in that plan don't start straight away. So they support our recovery. And I believe they are fair. And protect public services, protect working people from increases in their tax rates, and protect small businesses.
And we know we've still got a long way to go in terms of building out of this, in terms of our economy, not just with getting out of lockdown, but getting people back, shopping and going to hospitality, getting people travelling and getting those sectors up and running. We've got 4.7 million people, according to HMRC, still on furlough, and you've extended the furlough. How many of those jobs do you think will still exist when the scheme finally ends at the end of September?
Well, you're right, Julia, that in spite of the unprecedented interventions we've put in place, it's not going to be possible for me or anyone to save every single job as it was before this crisis came upon us. And sadly, almost 750,000 people have already lost their jobs. And that's why back in July last year, I outlined that my highest economic priority was protecting, supporting and creating as many jobs as possible. We had a plan for jobs, which we announced then. We've kept building on that, which is why things like the Kickstart scheme to create 250,000 new jobs for young people, all our initiatives on apprenticeships and skills and the lifetime skills guarantee are all so critical to help people get the skills they need to get new jobs and better jobs as the economy inevitably is going to change.
Corporation tax going up, particularly obviously for those who have bigger profits, £250,000 profit years. Vast majority of small businesses don't have anything like that sort of profit. But a lot of people wondering, well, where's that tax on the people who've really made money out of the lockdown? And Amazon's, the other big tech companies, reaping in billions of pounds in profit, largely at the expense of the high street shops that were forced to close. Why are we not seeing a windfall tax on their profits?
So Julia, to take two parts of your question, and I'm glad that you mentioned it, and I want your listeners to understand. So the corporation tax increase that we are putting in place, it doesn't come in for 2 years' time. So past the point that we're well on the way to recovery, which.
Oh, we're having some problems with this line. I don't know, Rishi Sunak. Sorry, your line just cut out after the word recovery. Apologies for that.
Oh,
I know you're
sorry. No, sorry about that. I was saying the rate doesn't come. Yes, it doesn't come in for 2 years. And as you said, we have a small profits rate that means 7 out of 10 businesses will not actually be affected by the increase. It will just be the largest, most successful businesses that see the full rate increase, which will still be a lower tax rate than all of our big international competitor countries. So, it still leaves us internationally competitive. Okay. But to your other point, it's right that we tax all companies fairly, which is why last year's budget, I announced something called a digital services tax, which is a new tax on online marketplace companies, like all the ones you would know, to ensure that we can tax more of their profits properly. That's reasonable and fair. In order to get a proper solution, we need to work with countries around the world to change international tax treaties. And that work is going on. And I'm leading that in the G7 group of countries this year with my finance minister colleagues. And hopefully we can reach international agreement on that thorny issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key thing. It's going to have to be international. Otherwise, they'll just simply plonk themselves somewhere else. Let's also talk about the 3 million excluded. Now, we know the reasons. We've spoken before about people who have not been able to be helped by your reaching arms around everybody. 600,000 more people are going to be helped by what you announced yesterday, people who've put in their tax returns for small businesses. Is it still not possible, really, to not help the extra 2 million or so who have, through no fault of their own, where they left a job at the wrong time, started a business at the wrong time, that they've not been able to get any help when there are so many millions and billions being spent? That would it really cost so much the taxpayer to help those people as well, often not even entitled to claim universal credit, those people?
So yesterday we made an announcement, as you highlighted, a major improvement in access to the scheme. Last year I was frustrated because those who are newly self-employed, we didn't have all their tax returns. Now we do, because the tax return deadline has passed. So all of those people can be brought in, over 600,000, which is great news. They'll benefit from the fourth and fifth grant that are coming in the months. But with regard to others, this number that people use, 3 million, I don't think is right. 1.5 million of that 3 million are people who are not majority self-employed. And I think it's right that we focus taxpayer support on those who make the majority of their income from self-employment. Remember, we don't know anything about, when we hand out these grants, we don't know about the particular details of the people, their situation, what's happened to them. So it's right that we are targeted in our approach. And all the stakeholder groups that I spoke to when we set up this scheme at the beginning accepted that principle, and actually some of them suggested an even higher threshold of earnings that you needed to come from self-employment. We went with the most generous approach. You just have to be majority self-employed, and what that means is those people, the 1.5 who are not majority self-employed, their average self-employment income is £2,000 or £3,000, so it is not the major source of their income, and I think that's a reasonable approach to take. The last thing I would say is, if you look at the figures published yesterday, in total, over this crisis, we will have spent over £30 billion supporting those in self-employment, and I'm confident that that will stand as perhaps the most generous approach to supporting self-employed people anywhere in the world.
An awful lot of what you've announced has been welcomed by those people who do reap the benefits of it. Spoke to the head of UK hospitality, representing, one of the biggest employers in normal years in our country, and they pointed out that a third of businesses in hospitality, a huge part of our service economy, have been closed now entirely, have not been able to reopen. Wasn't worthwhile for them to reopen under the conditions last summer. They're now been closed for 14 months in total when they're allowed to come out. They are now facing, although all this extra help with furlough and bounce back loans and all of that, deferred VAT, and the reality is they are still going to have to pay that VAT at some point. They've got tens of thousands of pounds in rent debt. They've also got to start paying back those bounce back loans. The interest will start on those very soon. Are you convinced that actually an awful lot of those businesses are going to be able to reopen, given they're actually going to be no profits for a year, huge debts, and all that support is going to end later this year?
Well, let's just take a typical restaurant business and what's going to happen to them next year. Well, they're going to get a cash grant in April worth up to £18,000, which I think is generous and is a restart grant to help them get going again, because I completely acknowledge how difficult it's been. They're going to pay no business rates for the first 3 months of the financial year, and even after that they're going to get a 66% discount on their business rates bill for the remaining 9 months of the year. In total, a 75% discount over 12 months. They're going to benefit from the low VAT rate of 5% for another 6 months. And then after that, it even still won't go up to 20%. It will be at 12.5% for another 6 months. So all of that is significant support because I really believe in this industry. You're right, they employ almost 2.5 million people, hundreds of thousands of businesses. They're the life and soul of our towns, our villages, our communities, and they disproportionately employ young people, women, those on lower incomes. So it's incredibly important to me we do as much as we can to try and protect as many of those jobs as possible, which is why we're throwing so much support at them. But I know it is difficult for many of them, but I think the best thing we can do is try and get them open again, and then hopefully they are ready to welcome us all back and fill their tables.
We certainly hope so. I'm a big fan of the Eat Out to Help Out, so you won't get any criticism from me on that one. Just finally, I know you're going to have to go. Realistically, we are seeing amazing data. We were told it's data, not dates, that's going to lead us out of lockdown. We have seen some amazing data, fantastic success from the government in terms of rolling out this vaccination programme, all credit where it's due. And yet we are still told the earliest possible date for us coming out of lockdown properly will be June the 21st. A few dates before then, the earliest possible dates for retail and hospitality to reopen. How much does every single extra day of lockdown cost? And can we afford to continue lockdown even one day longer than is absolutely necessary when the data tells us we can reopen earlier?
Well, Julia, you're right. It's going well, and that's fantastic. Look, when the roadmap was set out, the Prime Minister was clear. We wanted it to be cautious but irreversible, a one-way route to freedom, as ever brilliantly put it. You know, the last thing we want is have to go backwards, and that's why it's right to take this approach. We always said those dates, based on all the modelling that we had, would be the earliest by. But hopefully,
the modelling's out of date.
Well, day by day, let's see. I think the most important thing is we get it right, but you are right to highlight the costs of lockdown. I think that's absolutely fair. And what great news! Our kids are going to be back in school, all of them next week. That's brilliant. We've got to look at these things in the round, but I think we can hopefully end on this positive note. This vaccine rollout has been an enormous national success story. I mean, all credit to those involved, the volunteers, everyone from the team that developed the vaccine to the volunteers now helping. It's something we should all be proud of, and it's because it's going so well that we can look forward with confidence and positivity, and hopefully, as you said, that we can reopen the country, get back in all those restaurants, save as many jobs as possible, and look forward to a brighter future.
Well, let's hope so, but I know a lot of us would like it to come sooner rather than later.